Solana has been going parabolic recently, and I've been saying since the bear market, once they survived the FTX crash, that I think now was a decent time to add Solana to your portfolio over time. And yeah, it's up to 250. I want to talk about why 100 Solana is kind of a magic number right now. We'll be going through some price targets for this bull run, some major catalysts for Solana as well, and how you can get even more Solana than you have right now without having to buy anymore. If you don't mind though, hit subscribe so you can see future videos just like this. If you want to trade Solana or other cryptocurrencies, check out BYDeFi underneath the video. Of course, there's going to be volatility. You can take advantage of this volatility by acquiring more crypto than you could otherwise by using leverage. The cool thing about BYDeFi is they have Coin M. Some exchanges have this, but I really like it over here on BYDeFi. There you can trade Solana with Solana, for example. Like I have one Solana trade you can see here. I put up 1.58 Solana as collateral, and I'm going to get 1.9 back. So not only has the price gone up a lot, I think it was around 153 Solana when I opened the position, but $153 per Solana, but now it's 250, so the value has gone up almost 70%, and I'm getting more Solana back as well, so it kind of doubles the benefit here. Also, if you do take profits, for example, it stays in Solana as opposed to USDT, so if you're taking profits from the trade, but you still want to be exposed to Solana, this is a great way of doing that. So check that out underneath the video. Now, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ continue to hit new all-time highs day after day. At the same time, we're getting more and more treasury companies. Every single day, we're getting more Solana treasury companies, Ethereum, Bitcoin. You don't see anyone turning away from these treasury strategies. No, we just see more and more money, hundreds of millions of dollars going into them. Keep in mind, a $300 million Sol treasury is much bigger than a $300 million Bitcoin strategy, at least in terms of how much it pumps up the price. Solana is sitting right around $135 billion market cap, which is less than 1/15 that of Bitcoin. So when someone buys $300 million worth of Solana, it's like the equivalent of buying $5 billion of Bitcoin, which is hugely impacting the price of Solana. We've seen the same thing with Ethereum as well recently. Of course, Forward Industries is leading the way with over 6.8 million Sol in the last 30 days. The total cost, 1.58 billion. Today's value, 1.7 billion. They own over 1% of the supply in a very quick time. There are other companies as well, like DeFi Development Corp, Upexi, Sharps Technology, Sol Strategies, Bit Mining. There are going to be more and more treasury companies coming up. And the biggest impact on price for at least Bitcoin over the last year and a half has been the ETFs. This has helped Ethereum as well, but it has not really helped Solana, XRP, etc., except for the fact that Bitcoin and Ethereum are higher in value, but they have not been able to get spot ETFs. Sure, there are ETPs and futures products and stuff like that, but a lot of entities can't buy the ETFs unless they're spot products, or they just don't want to, right? Certain people don't want to buy something unless they're going to actually go out and buy the underlying assets. So the SEC just yesterday approved the generic listing standards for ETFs, paving the way for digital asset ETFs to list without requiring explicit approval, according to the agency. This is going to greenlight the way for a Solana ETF and then eventually a staking ETF as well, or they'll enable staking. This is going to be really cool because people are going to be able to get 4% rewards from staking Solana within the ETF. They don't have to do anything themselves. So this is going to be, I think, very popular. We're going to see this with Ethereum as well. But this will bring a lot of money into Solana. These are just some of the catalysts. Another big catalyst, the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates and kind of hinting that they want to cut more this year. This increases the guaranteed rate of return, or the risk-free rate of return decreases. So then people turn more risk on. Solana has been doing really well over the last couple months. As we can see here, let's zoom out to the one-day chart. just spiking. You can see that the chart's not too long here because this is still coin M, so it shows the chart starting when they allowed trading for coin M. But we were just at $130 back in June. So it's gone up almost 100%. All right. I've been pointing out that I really like Solana, especially when we were around 160. Ethereum was running and Solana was lagging, and now it's starting to run again. I still think it can run a lot more because we're going into a lower interest rate environment because of all the other things I just pointed out. I kind of like to think about, looking at the top 10 cryptos. Where could they be at the end of the cycle? And who knows how long the cycle lasts, right? I think we kind of have to take more of a day-by-day approach because the economy still looks okay. We have lower interest rates coming, so I'm not trying to say that we're going to hit a certain price at a certain time or anything like that. But if we just look at where Ethereum was last cycle, for example, it paints a pretty interesting picture. Ethereum went up to a $552 billion market cap. It just barely passed it recently. In price, it barely passed as well. But let's say Ethereum continues to run. Let's say Solana gets close to the old market cap for Ethereum, being that it's faster, cheaper, etc. Let's say it gets up to that old market cap. What would that put it at? What price would it put it at? Almost to the dollar, $1,000. It's going to be right around $1,000. Now, a lot of it will come down to what Bitcoin's doing, what Ethereum's doing. I don't think if we see Bitcoin fall 20%, we're going to see Solana continue to run up. I think maybe if Bitcoin comes down a little bit, then people go over to the altcoins. But if it comes down a lot, then people are generally scared. So a lot of it will depend on what happens with Bitcoin and policy and a whole ton of things, including M2 money supply, all that kind of stuff, S&P 500, what the economy is doing. But I would look at that key psychological level of $1,000 and say it probably won't hit quite that, maybe 800, 700, just like last cycle, people thought Bitcoin was going to hit $100,000 and then it went up to $69,000. So if you think Solana is going up to $1,000 and you want to take profits, I wouldn't wait until $1,000 because oftentimes we fall short of it. And sometimes it will fall like a decent amount shorter. So even the people that are trying to take profits at 800 or 900 don't necessarily get it. Just like no one was able to take profits on Bitcoin at $80,000 or $90,000 last cycle. So I might be looking at like 500, 600, starting to take significant profits all the way up till we kind of come down on the curve of price as well. Of course, that is if you want to take profits. If you want to just buy and hold, that's fine. Keep in mind, Solana also was much lower in price. So from the bottom, like if we go up to $1,000 and you bought at the very bottom, you would have 100x this cycle. That is crazy. Of course, Solana was one of the most hated cryptos during the bear market. Even worse than something like MicroStrategy. I realize MicroStrategy isn't a crypto, but it was pretty disliked during the bear market. And it's done something like a 20x. But Solana has done a 25x, so it's done even better. Now, why do I say 100 Solana? Why do you need 100 or 10 Solana or something like that? Well, 100 Solana is worth $25,000 right now. It would get you up to that six-figure mark. That's a key psychological level. That's assuming we get up to $1,000 Solana. That's a key psychological level for a lot of people. That's where everyone says that wealth compounds and skyrockets after that price, or that net worth. So my thinking on that, I think that people say that it's wealth skyrockets after that net worth, because generally after you hit $100,000 net worth, you've figured it out. You've kind of come out of that phase where maybe you have some debt or you have a low paying job and you're starting to accumulate faster. So naturally it does accelerate after $100,000. It's much easier to hit $200,000 than it was to hit $100,000. And you start to have assets work for you. But it's not like once you hit $100,000, let's say you have $100,000 worth of Solana, it's not like it's guaranteed wealth building for you, because we could see a pretty nasty bear market if you don't take profits. So you have to account for that as well. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts on this underneath the video. If you can't get 100 Solana, that's fine, right? We're all in our different scenarios. We all have different goals, different incomes, different pasts, right? If you've partied every day of your life until now, never set a dollar aside, it's going to be really hard to get to $25,000 worth of Solana. Or if you're in a small country or a generally less well-off country, if you have lower salaries, it's going to be much harder to buy. But you don't need as much either. So everyone's situation is different. Maybe 100 Solana, you could literally buy that with what you made today, right? From your income. I'm not here saying that you need that number, but it is a key psychological level. I think Solana could still do well this bull run. I'm not sitting here holding it until $1,000, though. I'm going to take profits much before that. Obviously, the highest price that's been is right around $300. It doesn't even show on this chart because it happened too quickly, I believe. But right at the beginning of the year, when Trump was launching his meme coin and everything like that, it went up to $295, I want to say. So that will be a key level of resistance as well in my mind. Sorry for the nasal congestion here, fighting a cold, but pretty much past it. If you do want to trade crypto, check out the link underneath the video. You can start trading on BYDeFi. There are links to other exchanges too, like BTCC or BLOFIN, WEEX, BitUnix. I like using multiple exchanges, and you probably should too, because in times of huge price surges, we oftentimes see some exchanges go down. We see that with like Coinbase and Binance all the time. These exchanges are a bit better, but also that might be because they're not quite as large, right? So they don't have 1 million or 5 million people logging in within an hour. So if you want to start trading, you can check out the link to BYDeFi. Check out my Telegram underneath the video too. It's completely free. There are like 1,700 people in there. And we have a pinned message with how you can actually get connected with someone at BYDeFi. So if you have questions or you're a big trader and you want to be included in our whale chat, you can check that out. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.